Hello there, people of the internet. It is a beautiful day out today. We are at the very end of 2021, and this is the first cool day we have. Not a cloud in the sky. It is absolutely gorgeous out here. I am out here with my M1 Garand, or Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing that, and an M1 Carbine. And I wanted to go ahead and talk about the two, and I tell you what, I've never been happier. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a very long time, but I have not. Although I've owned one of each of these in the past, I've never owned them together. So now I have an M1 Garand and an M1 Carbine, and I'd like to go ahead and talk about them. So the M1 Garand, this right here is a very, very iconic American rifle. This obviously dug us out of the Second World War and dominated the enemy on the battlefield, them and their bolt-action rifles and us and our semi-automatics. These feed from an in-block clip 8-round magazine. Anyone who doesn't know anything about the M1 Garand, what rock have you been living under? Anytime you see any sort of old war movie, or hell, any World War II movie, or any movie involving GIs that are before the Vietnam era and after World War I era, any of those movies, which are for some reason a very popular genre of movie, very interesting now that I think about it, you probably have seen one of these pop up a time or two in some of those movies. Now, there's a couple of misnomers with the Garand. If a troop can mess something up, they'll mess something up, and a lot of times just because the closing system on these Garands, troops will have their thumbs inside of the actions whenever the Garand closes, and they'll get Garand thumb. That is not something that I'm going to do today. I've seen plenty of people go ahead and give it to themselves, especially your bigger YouTubers, especially modern times. I am not a bigger YouTuber, and I am not going to go ahead and do that for you guys. I will, however, send 8 rounds of 30-06. This is proper M1 Garand ammunition. This is the real stuff. And whenever I tell people that this is proper, legitimate M1 Garand ammunition, they always get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Well, the way the Garand loads, for those of you that are in fact living under rocks and have no idea what this thing is or how it functions, you just take your rounds, you load it in through the top, you hold the charging handle back with the side of your hand just so it doesn't go flying forward. Although if you press down on your rounds, the charging handle should hold itself forward. But in case it doesn't, and just because I like letting it do this, I'll remove my thumb. A lot of times it'll fly forward, but if you do things properly, it should hold itself open like this, and then you got to give it a little smack and send it around forward. Now, I'm going to talk about the M1 Carbine before I go launching lead. So the safety on this thing is actually down on the trigger guard. Not my favorite kind of safety, but that's how they designed it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this on safe and set it right over here where it will be nice and safe. So I've talked about the M1 Garand plenty on this channel, but I have not really gone all that in depth about the M1 Carbine. I made a little video. This here is just an IAI modern production M1 Carbine. This isn't like a World War II production. I used to have an Underwood 1943 production M1 Carbine. That was a very nice little carbine. I regret getting rid of it, but times are tough and you got to do what you got to do. So the operating system on this looks very similar, but there's a different kind of gas system in this thing, and there's actually a lot of differences in the Carbine than there is in the Garand. But looking at them, which is what the troops would be noticing, they would notice that they are very similar in concept. Now, the M1 Carbine was not intended to replace the M1 Garand by any stretch of the imagination. The Carbine fires basically a pistol cartridge with very similar ballistics to a .357 Magnum. It is not at all comparable to the 30-06. However, because of the compact nature of the carbine and how lightweight it is, and it is extraordinarily lightweight, the troops in the field oftentimes would decide to pick this up instead of the Garand, and they would try to use this in the same roles that they would use a rifle. Well, that tiny little .30 caliber carbine cartridge is not all that capable of taking shots out to, I'd say, past 300 yards like a 30-06 would. 30-06 would have absolutely zero problems touching out to that distance, and yet something like this they have a reputation for being underpowered just because they were put into the same role that the Garand was. These originally were actually intended to not replace but substitute the 1911 handgun. During the Second World War, the United States government had discovered that the 1911 was responsible for very, 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 very few enemy kills. And they wanted to give their soldiers something that could touch out to a little bit further distance than a handgun could, but still lightweight, compact, easy to use. It was not intended to be a frontline carbine, although it was pushed into frontline service just because the service members liked it so much and didn't feel like lugging around an M1 Garand. Originally, this was intended for cargo transporters, artillerymen, people that weren't going to be battling the Germans on the front, but still wanted some sort of defensive measure better than a 1911. And I tell you what, they definitely got it. If I had the choice between carrying this or carrying a 1911, I would take this any day of the week. Now I will point out that this M1 Carbine is definitely quite a deal lighter than the M1 Garand. Honestly, if I was, you know, taking part in the Second World War, I'd probably pick one of these up over the Garand as well. Just because, A, it's a lot lighter, my eyesight's not great, you know, I can barely shoot at 100 yards, and this right here is more than capable of handling that. I doubt that I'd be on the front lines because, like I said, my eyesight's not great, and my skills as a marksman is also not great. They'd probably have me doing something else that didn't involve frontline service, but I'd probably go out with one of these over the Garand just because of my own personal capabilities, and this absolutely fits every genre of what I can do. I myself cannot shoot better than this thing, so that's one of the main reasons why I'd probably pick this up. I'm also surprised that the troops that were pushing this into the same role as the M1 Garand, they took a look at our .30 caliber carbine cartridge and didn't piece together that it was not as powerful as a .30-06. Although I'm sure that they did piece it together, they still put it in the same ballpark as the .30-06, and it did not even come close. So it just amazes me that they tried using these carbines in the same fashion as the Garands, and that is why they had decided that these right here were severely underpowered and could not handle anything. They were using it what it wasn't designed for. Alright, operating systems on this, like I said, aesthetically they look very, very similar to the Garand, but they're actually quite a deal different. This right here loads from an external magazine. This particular one, I don't know how many rounds it holds, 25, maybe 30. These aftermarket mags do not work all that reliably. I do plan on getting some actual GI mags, so we'll have to stay tuned for that one because hopefully that will make this carbine run a little bit better. These modern production carbines are notorious for not working all that well, and I'm pretty sure that this one is still in new-ish condition and still just needs to be broken in, so it has a couple of problems. The magazines have a couple of problems, but I'm sure that over time it'll wear itself in. So I got 5 rounds of .30 caliber carbine. We'll go ahead and send those downrange whenever we launch our .30-06 downrange. This right here feeds from an external magazine from the bottom of the rifle. Don't know if I said that. We have an actual magazine drop as opposed to the Garand, which has like an end block clip release, which you can use to launch your end block clip out of your rifle. I don't know why I'm talking about it. I may as well just show that to you guys. Grab my M1 Garand here. Pop this bad boy off of safe because I'm opening the chamber. There we go, grab my .30-06 round because this stuff is not cheap right now. And right here we have a button on the side of the receiver. You press that and your in-block clip comes out of the rifle and your M1 Garand is no longer loaded. I used to talk about this stuff all the time with my buddies, but now I can actually show people, and now I get the joy of loading this 8th round back into this clip. There we go, just like that, I think. Close enough. I always feel bad about shooting this PPU ammunition because it's just so pretty. It looks so good. I actually have 4 rounds of .30-06 extra. I have a couple of 8-round clips, but I got 4 extra rounds. As a matter of fact, I might just Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. Whenever I fire this 30-06, I'm gonna fire 4 rounds, just because we all know it's the ping that you guys want, and this will get it. This will get it quicker. Now, loading an end block clip into a Garand that is not fully loaded is a little bit more on the challenging side, but it is absolutely possible, and it's not that big of a deal. There we go. Just like that. We do not have a round in the chamber in this thing. I'm also going to point out that the gas system on the Garand is a lot more finicky than the gas system on the Carbine. You can feed basically whatever ammo you want into this thing, but with the Garand, you feed the wrong ammunition in there without an updated gas system and you will damage your rifle. Okay. I don't know what else to say. I guess I could talk about the safety. We got a little push button style safety as opposed to the safety on the Garand, which is inside of the trigger guard here. A lot like I think that the M14 had it as well, the M1A. And I know for a fact the Mini 14 has it as well. The genre of the Carbine is very M1 Garand style, but there's a lot behind the Carbine that is completely new and completely on its own. I ought to give you guys a little bit of history behind the Carbine right here. For those of you that don't know, this gun basically was made on accident. During trials, I believe it was Winchester, they were trying to make a cheaper, faster, easier to produce M1 Garand, and the US government was like, nah, we don't really want that, but we do want a little carbine, so your design, just scale it down to take 30 caliber carbine, and we'll call it a day. And they did that, but they half-assed did it, and were not expecting at all to get the contract, and turns out their rifle did really, really well. They had some parts breakages, and they had to like manufacture them by hand and by memory because they had one carbine. It was a one-off thing, and they didn't have blueprints or anything like that. So they had to, I forget who it was. I will go ahead and look up who it was that actually did the design work and the fixing of the parts breakages by memory for the M1 Carbine trials. But it was just basically by the grace of God that the M1 Carbine came to be, because this was originally not gonna be a thing, and nobody really intended it to be a thing. It just became a thing. And there were roughly 6 million of them produced throughout the course of the war. I have no idea how many are produced today, because there are quite a few out there, and quite a few modern production ones as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, I got 5 rounds in this 30 round, 25 round magazine on the Carbine and 4 rounds in the M1 Garand. We're gonna go ahead and launch some lead down range. Why not? I'm gonna put a round in the water there just so we can see the difference in splash. And then I will find something on the target, or on the actual gun range, to use as a target. Wow, this thing actually chambered. All right, well, I'm gonna send a round into the water. Let's see what happens. That's actually a pretty significant splash. The 30 carbine is comparable to a 357, and my rounds are catching on the lip of the magazine again. Definitely a magazine problem. And turn us a little bit that way. I got a piece of wood, like, precariously sitting to try and block some of this wind. So now I'm gonna, let's send 2 rounds at our steel target down there, just for fun. There's one, and a malfunction. Failure to extract on that one. There's 2, and a failure to feed. Well, we hit our steel targets both times. I got some crap on the top of the car. I always like shooting that because it makes a rust cloud. Let's hit that, why not? We had a little puff of rust. All right, yeah, this is definitely not a 30-06 round. Wow, this thing actually cycled. Let's, oh, I don't know. Let's go back to the water. That was a pretty fun little splash that we got there. That is actually quite significant of a splash. That's some pretty serious energy transfer at the distance of, I'd say, about 100 yards or less. This right here would be a very excellent little rifle to be using. It could be used out to 300, but I'd say like 100 and closer would be ideal. Now we have some 30-06 This is a little bit more powerful than our 30 caliber carbine. Oh man, that is beautiful. I have an aftermarket gas system in this thing. I do not have access to my normal factory gas system. Although this is proper M1 Garand ammunition, and I have the gas system basically closed, I'm not 100% sure if it's going to cycle. We'll have to find out. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot our water right here, and let's see how much bigger the splash is. Oh man. Yep, it's still raining. It's still raining. It's misting. There's still mist falling from the sky. Wow. So, first impressions, now that I actually have the two to compare, this kicks a lot more. It's a lot heavier. It's a lot more powerful. It's a lot louder. It's a lot more concussive. This is 50 billion times the rifle that carbine would ever be. But that carbine is 50 billion times the carbine that the Garand will ever be. It's almost like these weren't intended to be interchangeable. Oh man, the M1 Garand did that 30-06. It's nuts. Am I even hitting my steel? I can't tell. Let's hit the water again. Nope, I'm gonna go for the steel again. I'm gonna aim up at the corner and see if I hit that. I'm not sure where the sights are on this thing. Nope, I did not hit the steel, but we did have a pretty audible Garand ping. I guess I'll have to sight this thing in again. I know I halfway sighted it in not too terribly long ago. Now, I know that the M1 Garand ping is quite nice, but as we all know, 30-06 is quite loud, and you can't always hear the ping like you would like. So, for you M1 Garand junkies out there, here you go. Wow, that was the smoothest ping I've ever gotten out of this gun. That was incredible. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a very long time. I have wanted to bring out the M1 Carbine and the M1 Garand to the same range session and compare them side by side. I've wanted to do this for a long time. And now that I've done it, I feel pretty good about myself. I feel good knowing that these are mine. These are not loaned to me. These are a couple of dream firearms of mine. I almost said dream rifles, but I guess this doesn't really fall into the category of a rifle. These are a couple of dream pieces of mine that I have always wanted, and now I have them both at the same time. And I was able to fulfill my dream of running them both on the range at the same time. I wish I had a more appropriate magazine for the carbine, but that will come down the road. I will get myself legitimate standard capacity magazines for this thing, and it will run even better. What I should do is I should put some paper up there and see where this M1 Garand is shooting. We cycled all of our rounds though. I still have 4 rounds left though, but I think I'll have an incomplete clip. But I fire incomplete clips anyway. You guys see my dilemma. Anyway, folks, I am, what am I gonna do? I wish 30-06 was less expensive. I really wish 30-06 was less expensive, because I would very, very much like to run more ammunition through this Garand. It took me about, I don't know, 15 rounds or so to properly sight in this carbine. And at for the M1 Garand proper ammunition, at like $3 a round, 15 rounds, that's a lot of money to zero a rifle. So I don't even think I have 15 rounds. Actually at this point I have 2 clips left of 30-06 M1 Garand ammunition. So that is not enough. That is not enough. It's 16 rounds. You guys see my dilemma. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Like I said, I wanted to bring these out for quite some time. Basically this was me just blasting these, I almost called them rifles again, blasting these firearms off at the range. This was my excuse to come out here and do them. At the same time, I wanted to go ahead and bring up some of the misnomenclatures as to why this is considered to be underpowered. That is because it is not designed to Well, the wood just fell down. That is because this is not designed to do what the M1 Garand does. Are you going to stay there? You stayed there before. Why are you not staying there now? Okay. Wow, that is precarious. There's no way that's staying there. This is not designed to do what the M1 Garand does, but it was pushed into the same line of work that the M1 Garand was being used for. That's why this is considered to be underpowered. And if you compare the 30-06 to the 30 Carbine, then of course the 30 Carbine is going to seem anemic. Absolutely it is. But if you compare the 30 caliber carbine to the 45 caliber 1911, you can touch out and be way more effective with a carbine than you would a 1911, which is what it was intended for. But it's funny how intentions are not always what happens. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more. I do this stuff all the time, as you can see from the car down there. And I'm probably gonna have, every time I shoot this hole right here, it gets a little bit deeper. I'm gonna have just this crater by the time I'm done here. Subscribe to the channel for more. Like the video if you like the video. What else? Description down below. I have a bunch of links and a bunch of goodies. Go check that out. Have fun, etc., etc. What am I going to do now? I'm going to come up with another video idea. I will figure something out. It is such a beautiful day, and I am bound and determined to come out to the range. Anyway, I keep saying anyway. Thanks for watching. I have no idea how to end this video, so I'm just gonna say bye. Okay, so you remember that group of words I said whenever I was talking about how I wasn't going to use the remaining 4 rounds to really zero in this M1 Garand and see where it's hitting? That was a lie. I'm sorry that I lied to you, but I am certain that you're probably willing to forgive me. So I am going to go ahead and run these 4 rounds downrange. I have a fresh piece of paper down there that so I can really see where my rounds are hitting. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna lean up against this tree, give myself a nice stable foundation to run these rounds downrange. I was gonna do this off camera, but I figure that there's probably some of you out there that would very much enjoy watching me zero this M1 Garand, despite the fact that you won't even see me doing it. But hey, you'll be around for the ride and experience. So I don't think I have anything else to say. I'm gonna go ahead, chamber around, safety is off, and step over here and fire around downrange and see where it hits. Hopefully with the $12 I'm spending in these 4 rounds, I'm actually able to zero this thing. Oh, Nelly. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and wander down there. I have 3 rounds left. Only 3. All right, well, according to our paper down there, we hit quite a deal low and right, which certainly explains why I did not hit the steel. So I'm going to adjust this. Let's raise this up just a hair. Where are we at? Okay, I have us ever so slightly adjusted. I went ahead and raised this up. There is a way to readjust our rear calibrations on this thing, which I'll likely have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and try another round, and we're going to see where that hits. I'm going to lean up against this tree, get nice and comfortable and cozy, and send some flaming hot 30-06 lead down range. Oh, Nelly. If that wasn't a bullseye, well, if we were properly aimed, that would have been a bullseye. All right, let's see where we hit. Windage is perfect. Elevation needs a little bit of work. Need to come up just a hair more. Now, whenever I'd gotten this M1 Garand, I think I said it before, the sights had been played with, so they definitely need to be recalibrated. Right now, we're zeroed out to 400 yards and we're still hitting low, so goes to show. All right, let's go ahead, send another round down range and see what the old girl has to say. Okay. All right, I think I see the round from here. Might have brought that one a little too high. I stand corrected. We got us a freaking bullseye. All right. So, I have one round left, and it's gonna be the ping round. I figure let's go ahead and celebrate by hitting our steel down there with some 30-06 from our now sighted-in rifle. Here we go, enjoy the ping. Actually, I'll step out this way so y'all can really get a good view of the Garand. I always like the sound of the ping. Unfortunately, my in-block clip here landed in mud. So now I have to clean it. These were made to be disposable during the times of war, but during the times of not war, they're not disposable, especially during modern times. Okay, well, I already made the end of the video, so bye. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garand. Shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.